This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And today I have a very interesting guest on. Um, Many of you know that I belong to a group called podmatch.com, and uh, Podmatch identifies different guests for us that, probably would be a good fit for our show. And when I read Wendy's bio, it was like, wow. So many of us wake up in the morning and think this is what our life is going to be about. And then something happens, it changes. Um, and when I go back and I look at the last 72 years of my life, wow, it never followed the pattern that I ever thought it was going to lead to. But Wendy has inspired me. And she's inspired me because despite things that may have come along in her life, she's found a way to rebound. And that is what we all need to do. You know, we can walk around saying there's a black cloud over our head, but you know what? That black cloud is only there because we keep it there. So, Wendy Wallace, welcome to New Cleveland Radio. And I didn't want to say too much about your past, so I want you to tell us who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for having me. It's
Sure.
truly a blessing in my life to be here. And who is Wendy? Okay, so I am a wife, mom of three grown-up children who are all in their 20s and living their life on their own. I'm a Grammy, and I'm a mama to a fur baby who's very spoiled. So if we hear some noise, it's just her.
Okay.
And I am a Christian living and positivity coach and blogger, and I am a quadruple amputee.
So I love how you identified yourself. Amputee came at the end because that does not define you.
Mm-mm.
You're a wife, you're a mother, you're a grandparent. Yeah, you love your animal. You're living your life and you're helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes when we meet someone like yourself, and especially in Zoom, and I see you from the neck up, you are just like everybody else walking this earth. But you mentioned you're an amputee, and yet it doesn't appear that it's held you back in any way.
No, it did in the beginning because I struggled with, well, what do I do now? Up until that point, I was raised in a family. I had a home business that was really successful and I was busy. All the kids were teenagers and they all had their own activities, and I was running all of our creation, doing their thing. And then one day, it all came to a screeching halt when I thought I was coming down with the flu bug. Went to bed, try and sleep it off and just rest and get over it. But I had an interesting swelling on my leg that just kind of didn't fit. After a couple days, my husband said, "We need to go to the hospital and get this checked out because you're getting worse, you're not getting better." And so I got to the hospital. The last thing I remember is them slapping an oxygen mask on my face because I was losing oxygen. I was in a coma for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And, immediately they life flighted me. Thankfully, they diagnosed me as having a flesh eating bacteria called necrotizing fasciitis, which was where that swelling was coming from. There was this bacteria growing in my body. They life flighted me to a bigger hospital that could better care for me. And they told my family, just, you know what? She's not going to make it. You need to get used to the fact that you need to say your goodbyes.
So, number one, we now realize that doctors are practicing medicine and they don't always have it right. And sometimes they don't have it right because we have that inner strength And sometimes we don't even know where it comes from. It can be spiritual, it can be something else, but having that inner strength, you fought to be here. And you know,
Yeah.
that is remarkable for you.
Yeah. And so when my husband heard that, he said, no, 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 no. This is not how this is going down because you don't know my God and you don't know what he's capable of. And
Okay.
so my family started praying. Our church family started praying. My business partners were praying. And I am still meeting people. This was 11 years ago that prayed for me that I didn't even know who they are. And I'm still meeting them today. And God heard those prayers. And here I am. I mean, yeah, I was in a coma for 3 weeks. They did multiple surgeries on me to remove the bacteria, but then I started to get better. And the doctors were befuddled. And they still needed to amputate, but that was a small price to pay to save my life because my
Absolutely.
husband and kids weren't ready to say goodbye,
Well, and you weren't ready to leave
and I wasn't ready to
this
leave.
earth either.
No.
And, you know, in some cases, and luckily you had that love in that family and that trust.
Mm-hmm.
But sadly, in many cases like this, families walk away. They don't know how to deal with it. It's like,
Mm,
you know, my spouse is ill and now I have to take over, or my mother is ill and I can't do the things that I want to do in my life.
mm,
Obviously, you had helped plant a seed in your family that, no, I'm a strong person. And yeah, I may need some help along the way, but don't we all? We
yes,
all need each other.
we do.
So when they came to you and they said to you, okay, Wendy, um, we have to amputate. Well, how did you react? Because I know what I would do. I would say, yes, save my life. And then I would cry, oh, why me?
Well, interestingly enough, is they woke me up from the coma to tell me because
Wow.
I didn't know what was going on.
Sure.
And, I found it interesting that they would even ask my permission. And when I asked my husband, he said they just wanted you to know what was going on. And it needed to be done either way if I was going to live. But they did. They woke me up and I saw my hands, which had died. There was no blood flow. And they said, what do you want to do? And my husband was standing there and he was just devastated. And I said, just do what you have to do. They didn't give me the chance to cry. They turned the lights back out on me again. And I went back to sleep for the rest of my coma period. Um, but when I woke up, yeah, I looked down, there were bandages where my hands and feet had been. And the first thing I did was pray because I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I knew that we were going to need help, even externally from our family. Um, and I just prayed to the Lord that He would just be my guide and give me the courage and the strength, not just for me, but all of us,
Right.
because everybody's life had just changed.
And none of you had asked for this change. It's not like it was a change that, hey, yeah,
Right.
this is what we want to do in life.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and you know, sadly, those of us on the outside looking in, if we don't know the whole story, um, we concoct things, okay, in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And we imagine things, good, bad, indifferent. And one of the reasons I do this show is for all of us to be open and aware and understand, because this could happen to anybody at any
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, I remember one of my first interviews I ever did about 10 years ago. It was a gentleman who was blind, and he said he disliked when little kids would come up to him and their parents would move them away because the little kids noticed he couldn't see. And they would say to him, "What does it feel like not to see?" And then he would explain to them how he sees with his hands, how he
Mm-hmm.
sees with his ears. And these little children would get all excited. And but the parents were like embarrassed. And and he said
Yeah.
on the show, please do not be embarrassed. Encourage your children because I'm just like everybody else. But
Mm-hmm.
okay, I don't have my eyesight, but I have everything else going on.
Mm-hmm.
You have your eyesight, you have your voice, you have a smile on your face. Okay, so your hands and your feet are different. Okay. So we need to learn how you get through the day the same
Mm-hmm.
way that we get through the day with some of our disabilities, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe the really abilities.
I think so. I think so. And I agree with that gentleman. I always tell folks, don't stifle your kids. I don't want them thinking that people that are different from them are monsters or something to be afraid of. You know, I have a friend who runs a daycare in town, and they were reading a book about someone in a wheelchair. And she called me up and said, will you come in and talk to these kids? And I thought that was such a fabulous idea. And we had a great time. I've actually been back several times. And they ask the kookiest, most embarrassing questions, but they don't care. And if their parents had been sitting there, they would have been horrified. And I'm like, bring it on. Just don't stare at me. That's the
Exactly.
part. You know, the
Yeah.
adults are the ones who stare. The kids are like, hey, cool, you got bionic legs on. What's that all about?
And it's becoming, and I don't want to say it's becoming more normal to see, but it is becoming more apparent. And, you know, I think we need to encourage it. We have to stop hiding behind whatever these different abilities are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm sure, like I've said before, it had to have been very tough. I mean, yes, you said do whatever you have to do, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, you didn't want to lose your hands and your feet because that was going
No.
to be a new way of living. But you took all this and you now are a coach, and you coach spiritually. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, what were you doing prior to your disease?
Like I said, I was a busy mom. I had a network marketing business that was growing, and it kept me busy between the kids and the husband and caring for the household. You know, I showed my love, I guess you could call it my love language, by cooking and cleaning and, just
Yep,
doing all
I
the
get it.
mom things and all that stuff. And I can't do that anymore. Now, the kids are all moved out, we're empty nesters, but I still can't do stuff. I can't cook. I can't do laundry. I can't clean the house. I can't even dress myself. And so that brings a whole nother perspective to things because now my husband, who works all day long, he's a diesel mechanic and he gets home, he works 60 hours a week. He comes home and he has to cook, he has to do laundry, he has to throw me in the shower. And, you really get a different view of what humility is, what love is. Um, and there's just a lot of things that I cannot do. So what I do is just, you know, uh, this has given me an opportunity to grow my faith and just seek the Lord in everything for guidance and wisdom and humility and just oftentimes I'll say, well, he's cooking dinner. Can I help you? I don't know what I can do, you know. I can get you some salt, but it's very limited and it's very frustrating. And he does not care. Thankfully, I am, I call him my hero. he does not care that I cannot help. In fact, he would prefer that I don't, because I usually drop whatever I pick up and try and help him with. But does it stink sometimes? Yeah, because his life is forever changed. Not just because he has a wife who's differently abled, but because now he has to add more duties to his already busy life. And when I ask him about it, he says, I'd rather do this for you than have lost you. And so it puts a different perspective on things. Here I
Absolutely.
am feeling sorry for myself because I've got to be waited on, and he doesn't care. So I just need to keep my mouth shut.
Well, and I sometimes think that we have to look at the situation that would we do this for someone else? Okay.
Right.
And that's something that we often forget and we beat ourselves up. Oh, look what he's doing for me, or look what they're doing for me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, wait a second. If it were reversed, I'd be doing it. And what can I do
Absolutely.
for them in my situation now?
Mm-hmm.
And being supportive is what you're doing. Being
Mm-hmm.
there, being alive, being, having your mind working and being able to articulate, how important is that? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this doesn't mesh, it doesn't equal the same thing, but my husband um, has developed um, psoriasis in his ears, and he needs drops in his ears. And for some reason, he just can't do it. He's tried, and every time he tries to do it, it doesn't work. And so I now have a routine every night. Even if I have fallen asleep before him, he'll
Mm-hmm.
wake me up and I put the drops in his ears. And then about 45 minutes later, the alarm goes off so he can turn on his other side and I can put, I mean, he's very able, but he just can't do this. And in the beginning, um, it was like, sure, I'll do it. Didn't realize it was going to be a lifetime thing.
Right.
And then I started getting angry until I stopped and I said, wait a second. If I don't do this for him, he's going to be uncomfortable, because he was constantly scratching and pulling at his ears and he was getting ear infections. So I knew he was going to end up getting sick. And so
Right.
I had to say to myself, it's okay. I can do this. And so my sleep pattern has been messed up. But you know
Mm-hmm.
what? Like your husband says, he still has you. Okay.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, stop and think about what the reward is in the end. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the most important thing. So you mentioned your bionic legs or your bionic feet. So you have prosthetics that you can use. Is that correct?
Yes, I use them on my feet, but I don't use any on my hands.
Okay.
Um,
So,
they were, I mean, you get up in the morning, you slap your legs on, and then it's like you have legs. It's just part of my body. But the arms, I had tried them and they just were so heavy and inefficient. They really didn't do anything. So I opted to go without, and I find myself having just more ability without them.
I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that after the amputation, you had to go through some sort of physical therapy.
Yes.
Um, and so for an active mom who, raised her kids, cleaned her house, and for those listening, I'm going to tell you, cleaning and cooking and laundry is a job.
Yes,
So
it is.
Wendy had a full-time job before all this happened. Um, but you were so active. What did you ask for any particular help in physical therapy so that you might be able to do something like you used to?
I remember because one of my biggest losses is the ability to cook. And I went to a rehab center for the last month of my hospital stay visit. It was a total of 3 months that I was in the hospital after all this mess, and I wanted to know, how can I cook? Um, and the way that they amputated and fused my arms did not give me any ability. And we tried everything. We even practiced making pancakes, and I couldn't flip the pancakes. And the best I can do is put my two arms together and try and hold on to the spoon and stir it. But it's just the angle, and there's no feeling there, and it's difficult. So that was one of the biggest losses. Now, it just occurred to me right from the beginning, I always felt like our children needed to be contributing members of the household. And so right from the start, I taught them how to fold clothes and help around the house and put their things away and cook. And so they were prepared to step in and help. And it's interesting how, because it just hit me to have that foresight to know that someday it was going to be necessary. And it wasn't really for that point, but because I needed them to know that I'm not their servant. I'm not here to wait on them their whole lives.
Absolutely.
And if they're going to live with me, they're going to be active members of the household.
I
But it
think
ended up working out for everybody because they took turns cooking and laundry and all that fun stuff.
well, and our kids all grow up and go off on their own at some point. And if they
Yep.
don't know how to do these things for themselves, that's pretty tough. I know my son moved away for a couple of months, and it was funny as he was preparing to move, he said, "What are some of the household things I need?" And I looked at him and I said, "Like what?" And he said, "Well, I know I need soap for the dishwasher, because he turns the dishwasher on." But he didn't know all the other components. And so I said to him, "But you do clean out the bathtub." "Well, yeah. Well, what do you use?" And he goes, "The stuff underneath the sink." So we had to go through all that. So he knew how to do it, but it was like, which ones do I buy? And
Right.
so it is really important, because whether we are fully able or we have different abilities, um, it's important that we all help each other out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I have spoiled my husband terribly. He never attempted to cook when he lived at home. When he lived on his own, all he knew was how to use a microwave. And to this day, that's all he knows. And
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about it. Like, what if you had to cook me a meal? And he said, "I would order it." And I said, "But you can't afford to do that day in and day out." And he said,
Right.
"Well, then maybe you would have to sit there and walk me through it." And I thought, well, now would be a good time. But no, he's not ready to do it. When he has to do it, he'll do it. Um, so, talking about your husband, was he a cook before this all happened, or did he just have to learn on the fly?
He was a regular guy cook. He cooked on the grill. That was, he liked to do that. But yeah, he kind of learned on the fly. We always, the kitchen is a meeting place, a place to hang out. So we were always in it together. My contribution now is looking up recipes.
Okay.
And, at least we're still doing it together. And if that's all I can contribute to the um, whole cooking thing. Interestingly enough, though, my kids there's three of them, and they all figured out what they like to do in the kitchen. My oldest has decided cooking is the next best thing since flying, which is his first love.
Okay.
And he's an incredible chef. And my daughter, she can make anything she wants to. My youngest son, he's a griller.
Okay.
And
Okay.
if and he just doesn't want to cook. He didn't want to cook back then. He doesn't want to cook now, but he's starting a family, so he knows that he needs to contribute a little bit more. And I like that because they're all taking different aspects of our experiences and just growing with them. They're thriving. They were thriving then, although we all had our moments of sadness and, frustrations, but they all grew in their faith in the process. And they're beautiful human beings. I am so proud of every single one of them.
So, when this disease started on your leg, did you have any warning that you said you felt like you had the flu?
Mhm.
So, did you have a couple of days where you weren't feeling well and then said, "Oh, I think I'm getting the flu. I'm going to go sleep this off"?
Yeah, it was a Thursday night. We were at one of our kids' activities, and I was driving home, and I was like, with the whole sniffly nose thing, and I'm like, oh, well, this isn't any good. And the next morning, I was really kind of down for the count. But the leg, it turned out to be an ingrown hair that this bacteria had used to enter my system. And that's why it was swollen, is because the bacteria was growing. It grows super fast. And had I waited even another day, I wouldn't be here today.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
there was no warnings. There was nothing that you could have done to prevent this.
No.
And that's important for all of us to understand too, because sometimes, you know, and I've heard it on so many of my shows where people have been blamed. Why didn't you tell your spouse you weren't feeling well? Why didn't you go to the doctor? Um,
Yeah.
and it's like, some things you just don't know. And
No.
sometimes modern medicine doesn't find it right away either.
Right.
So
But that's why if somebody is, we all know our own bodies. So I am a proponent of, if you know something's wrong, don't wait.
yeah,
Just go get it looked at. And I know in today's world, we can't always get right in to see our doctors,
right.
but we have resources. We have video chats and all of those things. So if you know something's wrong, just get it checked out. Because, like I said, it's kind of like you've never seen a purple Hyundai before till you buy one, and then
Yeah,
they're everywhere.
exactly.
So the same thing. I mean, amputees, I see them, I meet them everywhere, but the people that I've met that have contracted the same bacterial infection, the stories are, I caught it within hours and I was able to save my limbs, versus we waited 2 hours too long. And now,
Wow.
my leg is amputated up to my hip. And this is something that just kills you completely. So I was very fortunate, and I 100% believe in the power of prayer. And I know that is why I'm still here.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was amazing experience, not in a
So,
good way.
so how did you start coaching other people? How did that all develop?
Well, I've been blogging for 4 years, and I started to write as a way to reach people who have been kind of stuck in whatever their pity party is. Because I've been there. I It took me a while to bounce back, because for the longest time I didn't know what I was going to do without hands. I lost my passion for my business, and now I'm writing, which is totally ironic, but I wanted to be able to reach people that just needed to move on but didn't know how. And after 4 years, I kept getting these comments, I need help, and how can you help me? And I thought, coaching is the next best thing, is to, go alongside these folks and
Right.
teach them what I've done to overcome my pity party and move on to create a life of contentment and peace and joy and fulfillment. And so, yeah, it just kind of happened. One day you wake up and just the ideas that pop into your head, and either you follow them or you don't. And I chose to move in that
Follow.
direction, and it's been really awesome.
So you talk about writing, but you don't have hands. So therefore you don't have fingers. So I'm sure you're not holding a pen, correct?
I'm not. Are we on video? I know we're
Yes,
video
we are.
chatting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a stylus that I strap to my wrist.
Okay. I see it.
And I tried the voice back in the day. It was called Dragon. I don't know if they still have it or not, but it was like you talk and it types out everything
Right.
you say. And I found myself having to correct more words than I was getting right. And so I said, okay, none of this. I'm going to figure this out. And so the whole process is trial and error.
Sure.
How do I open drawers? How do I, get a drink if I need it? It's just trial and error. So when we figured out how to do this, then I was able to type. And so I have a hook on my phone,
Okay.
and this is where I type.
Okay.
My business is practically built on my phone and my stylus, but now I can put another one on this arm and go to town on my laptop too. So I use my stylus more. I still use the voice typing, like on Google Docs or on my phone. But yeah, most of it's just me just typing away on my stylus.
Well, and I wanted to ask that so that our listeners could, see that, hey, there are some options. Um,
Yeah.
So many of us, when we have some sort of different ability, whether it's our eyes change and now we have to wear glasses, or, uh, I had cataract surgery a year ago. And so I can see far. I can't see really close, but certain times on the computer, I don't need my glasses. And so I've had to learn where to put the computer if I don't want to use my glasses, and where to put the computer if I'm going to wear the glasses.
Right.
We adapt. I wear hearing aids, and the same thing. There are certain places I go, and you know what? I don't care how great my hearing aids are. It's just noise. Um, but I've learned, which I didn't realize until after the pandemic, how much I read lips. But during the pandemic with the face mask, it was like I'm not hearing anything that's going on. So, so
Wow.
we all go through these things. Um,
Yeah.
People have arthritis, people break an arm, people, have a limb amputated, they have some other medical condition. And we tend to not give ourselves um, enough kudos for what we can adapt to.
Right.
And it's very important that we do, because otherwise we become our own victims. And you sort of implied that too, that I can
Mhm.
sit here and have my pity party, which you did deserve to have. But how long is that party going to go
Right.
on?
Yeah, it's okay to be sad and go through the stages of grief and all of those things. It's not okay to stay there. And that's what I help folks in my coaching, because a lot of times we lose that joy and peace. And I don't think I'll ever feel content again or fulfilled, or I'm just sad. I don't know why. I don't know. And I get a lot of times it's a choice. Sometimes it's not. I get that. But I've always been positivity mindset, you know? And when we focus on things that we can't do versus the things that we can, that's when we run into problems.
Exactly. You are so right. And I sometimes go through this with my youngest son. He is on the autism spectrum. However, he's at a very high functioning level that most people don't even know he has autism. But
Mhm.
he's an overthinker because of it, to the point that sometimes it just drives him crazy because he'll come up with all these different scenarios and then he just
Sure.
doesn't do anything. But he's come a long, long way since he was little, and now, you know, so proficient. But he taught me that walking around saying, "Oh, woe is me," doesn't get you to the next level.
Mm-mm.
I mean, if you had said that, you wouldn't have your stylus on your arm.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have figured out your phone, because I was wondering the same thing. So if your phone rings during the day or you want to call somebody, how do you do that? Well, hey,
Right.
it's right here. And we all walk around with our phone. So, you're no
Right.
different than anybody else. So,
Only I think I might even have my phone more because I have to write everything down, which I know training my brain to remember is a lot better for me than writing things down, because then I don't have to remember
yeah.
stuff. But I record everything in there. The grocery list, the ideas for content I'm creating, social media, all of this crazy stuff goes in that phone. And so yeah, I have it all the time.
Well, that would be good for most of us to do, because I know myself, multitasking, at the end of the day, it's like, what did I forget? And I don't use my phone as proficiently. So I think I'm going to start doing that, because you just gave me some really good reasons to do that. So, how do individuals find you, Wendy? How do they know that you are the coach who can, guide them? Obviously, you can't give them all the answers because your situations are going to be different,
Right.
but a coach is there to guide. So,
Mhm.
how do they find you?
Well, the best place to find me is on my website. It's called oneexceptionallife.com, and it's the word one. Um, and everything's on there. All my social medias, my contact information. I'm on Facebook, and my I do accept friend requests from new people. I like to get to know new people. I have a One Exceptional Life Facebook page too, and I have a free women's group. It's called Women Living Exceptionally with Joy and Jesus.
Love
And
that.
but all of that can be found right on my website, and I can certainly give you all the links that you need for the show notes and that.
Okay. Well, we will definitely get those from you. Um, I'm going to ask a favor of you, because I have a very dear friend who I met through Podmatch. Um, and she's gone through a number of disabling situations. And
Mhm.
I think the two of you would be great. You being a guest on her show and her being a guest on your show. And so, what I'd love to do is connect you, which I will privately. Um,
Mhm.
but I will tell you, her first name is Darcy, and she is just, the two of you come from a spiritual background. And I have to say, when I first met Darcy, I said to her, she's coming from one spiritual side, I was coming from another. And you know what? They meshed. They meshed. And so, for our listeners, it doesn't make any difference where that spiritual side comes from. Um, it's so enlightening. And um, I just, she just makes me feel so good when I talk to her. I hear your dog. So, what kind of
Yeah,
dog?
she's a black lab hound mix. And when she gets an idea, she goes to town.
Well, I'm so glad that she let herself be heard. Um,
That's
what
Ruby.
Ruby?
Yes.
And how old is Ruby?
She's 8.
So she's been with
So
you quite a
she's
while
been with,
then.
yeah, it's funny. Ruby came into our lives right as our oldest son was heading off to college and everybody was going back to work because this all happened in the same year that I got sick. And I'm like, you guys are bringing a puppy in the house when everybody's leaving me alone to train a dog when I can't pick up after her or let her out or but you know what? She was a great baby and she's a great companion and she gets a little noisy sometimes, but
Hey,
she's been
gotta,
a
they gotta get their
awesome.
voices heard too. So I love it.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. We will have all your links in the show notes.
Mhm.
And I encourage everyone, please connect with Wendy, learn more about Wendy, this in the coaching that she provides. We all know somebody in our life
Yeah,
who needs a little guidance. And you know what? If we're not experiencing the same thing, we are not the right person to coach. We can support, but you
yeah,
know, I can support somebody who is, wearing hearing aids and has hearing loss. I can do that very, very well. But I don't know what it's like not to have a limb. And all I
yeah.
would say is, you know, I'm there with you. I'll support you. But you know what? Wendy understands. So thank you again. And
Thank you so much, Karen.
I'm going to connect you with Darcy. Okay. Have a
Awesome.
great
Thank you.
day. Bye
You
bye
too.
now.